Hey everyone, welcome to the Waukesha One Conference. I'm your presenter Kevin Hyde, and here we are today to talk about the cool spreadsheet script super quiz. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Today what we're going to do is set up super quiz. It is going to be assumed that you know how to build a quiz or a test in Google Forms, and so we're going to skip all those parts. So if you need to kind of hone your skills on that, I would suggest stopping this video, going back to an earlier video that I've done, and actually making a quiz or a test. Okay, so here we are. I've already put together my super quiz test, and this is for my class AP US History. So here you can see I have section headers, I have my pictures, and then I have some analysis questions of those images. Okay, so it's important to note that when you're doing a super quiz test, you can really do no more than 20 questions. Okay, so this one I have only 8. And it's also going to help if you have these section headers that kind of summarize the topic of the questions. So for instance, I have one on immigration, so I have 2 immigration questions. I have a bunch of questions on urbanization, so there's 3 there. And then I also have 3 questions on women's suffrage. Okay, so that's how I have mine set up. So if you look at my live form, here we see how it should look. So it looks good. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our responses page. Remember, whenever you make a form, there's always a responses page that automatically gets created. Okay. Now, what you need to do is you need to go to add-ons. And if you haven't added Super Quiz, you need to go to where it says Get Add-ons, and then you simply need to search Super Quiz and then download it to your spreadsheet. It's a pretty simple process. Okay, but here's the first deal. Okay, this is the order of things that you have to have. You have to have timestamp, email, name, or hour. Okay, so a couple things. Hour can be either teacher, so if you have a bunch of teachers teaching the same class and you guys want to compare how each teacher did, then you would change this to teacher. So for instance, when the kids sign up, instead of going hour, they would just pick Mr. Johnson or Mr. Hyde or Mrs. whomever. Okay, but because I'm the only one that teaches APUSH, I have no need for that. Okay, so if you're just doing this to see how your classes are doing, then you would do hour for that third slot, and if you are not, then you would simply just ignore that. Okay, so anyways, this is how everything should look. Like I said, you should have email, name, and hour. Okay, and it has to be like this. Okay, the next thing you have to do is you have to be the first response. Okay, so your answer key has to always be in row 2, and if it's not, it won't work. So I'm going to go ahead and real quickly enter in the answer key. Okay, so I'm going to enter my information. I'm actually going to write answer key. Got my own rule there. Okay, I'm just going to pick an hour there, and then I'm going to real quickly answer the test here. Okay, so I'm going to press submit. There we go. And then if I go back to my responses, there we go. There's my response. Perfect. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get this script running here. So I'm going to go to Super Quiz, and I'm going to click on Get Started. And sometimes this takes a while. So sometimes you have to be a little patient. Okay. So here's the checklist, and it's, I would definitely read this if I were you, but it'll give you some instructions. So I'm going to create tabs. And this is where it takes some time. Okay, so it's going to take a little bit to load, and hopefully our internet's a little faster today. But it should load up here in about a minute or so. And it's going to give you about 7 tabs or so. And those tabs are going to do a bunch of things for you. They're going to show how individual students did in your class. Okay, so it's going to give each student's responses, and they're going to show which ones they got right or wrong. They're going to show as a class, what was the percentage of each question that students got right. And they're also going to show things like for each question, which student got it wrong. Okay, there's going to be a tab for feedback, and that's going to be the one that we're going to spend most of our time on. So there's going to be this feedback tab, and we're actually going to be able to type in some of the feedback that we want our kids to get. And then we also can put some, extension questions to, once again, check for understanding. Okay, so those are all the things that we are going to see there. Now, the great thing about Super Quiz is that once it is set up and a student does go ahead and enter their information, the great thing about Super Quiz is that they'll get live feedback. So the minute the student presses submit, Super Quiz will grade their quiz, and then almost immediately in real time, it will generate a Google Doc and it will email it to that student. And on that email, it will show them what they got right, what they got wrong, and then it will also show them the feedback that you want them to have. So for instance, if a kid did really bad on my quiz when it comes to immigration, for instance, there would be some things for them to go ahead and do to essentially work on that content and to improve upon that skill. So anyways, I'm running out of things to talk about because it has taken so long for Super Quiz to get set up here. So hopefully it gets going here quickly. The other thing we can talk about while this is, and we can see right down here, it's starting to pop up the tabs here. The other thing that we can talk about too real quick while Super Quiz is up and running is it's kind of similar to the script Flubrew, but just it has more features. So Flubrew is really good if you just want a real quick, you don't really have time to do a lot of feedback. Flubrew is really good for giving a kid a quick quiz or a test or whatever, and then getting that feedback to them, or just essentially grading it incredibly quickly. So actually I use both, but when I have time, I think Super Quiz is definitely the right one to go with. Okay, so here we can see slowly but surely the tabs are popping up, and so maybe we can start by looking at what each one does. Okay, so here we can see the first one is right or wrong. So as your students take this, you'll be able to see very clearly, right or wrong and how they did. Now, the third tab is also very cool. The third tab is going to show you what percentage of each hour got the questions right or wrong. And so obviously no one's taken this quiz yet, so we can't see this. But I do have a sample in the Google folder on the website. But because I selected hour, I'm going to be able to compare my third hour, my fourth hour, my fifth hour, my sixth hour, my seventh hour, my eighth hour, and then I'm going to be able to compare how the classes did. Okay, so that's a really cool feature. Now remember, if you didn't put hour and you put teacher, now you'll be able to see how each class did under a different teacher. So if you have the same assessment, if you're doing the same unit, you can basically compare how your kids are doing. So for instance, if I want to see how my kids are doing compared to the AP US History class at North and at South, the teachers and I can get together and we can maybe have different instructional strategies planned, and we can look at which ones may be more effective based on our class results. Okay, so there's a lot of really cool things you can do there. Okay, but I just have hour for now. Okay, the next one's going to be incorrect students, and then what this is going to do is it's going to give the email address for each question that a student got wrong. So for instance, every student that got question number 5 wrong, you'll see their email pop up here. And that's really cool. Now here's where we get to the nitty-gritty here. Here's where we have to spend a little bit more time. Okay, so here's where you get the feedback. Okay, so you see that they have some very preliminary things added in here. Okay, so you can't edit anything in the yellowish brownish color here, but you're going to want to fill in. I'm just going to show you actually. So the first thing you want to do is you want to break down your topics. Okay, so here we can see finally, everything is done. Perfect. So now we can go ahead and we can close that off. Okay, so now we want to click and say what our topics are. So my first topic was immigration. So I'm going to type in immigration. And there was 2 questions on immigration. And you want to make sure that this is all in order. Okay, my next topic was, I believe, urbanization. And that one had 3 questions. And then my final one was women's suffrage. Okay, so I'm going to put that one in there. And there was 3 questions for that. Okay, I don't have a 4th topic, so I'm just going to leave it blank. Okay, now here we see these ones, specific feedback here. This is going to be sent to students who didn't get 100% in each topic. Okay, so what the script will do is that if a kid gets any question wrong in a certain topic, it'll trigger some feedback. Okay, and that's pretty cool. So what you can do for this is if a student, like I said, gets something wrong in a topic, you can then tell them to go to this website or watch this video for more help. Okay? And obviously I don't have anything in there. Okay? But if I was doing it, I would put a link in there. And so when the email gets generated back to the students on that Google Doc, a kid will be like, oh my gosh, I got both those immigration questions wrong. What should I do? And basically they can say, okay, I'm going to go to this website. I'm going to watch this video, and boom goes the dynamite. I should get it. Okay? So I'm just going to do the same thing for each one here for time's sake. But you'd obviously want it. And this is where most of the time comes in. This can get a little tedious. But if you want to do it right, you're going to spend some time here. So I'm just going to go ahead and paste the same feedback in here. Press enter. Okay. Almost done. Okay. So for some reason, it's not working. There we go. Okay. Now, over here in the third column here under questions, here's where you can put a question. Okay? So here's where you can say, what's the difference between old and new immigrants? I'm just thinking of some random question here. It's not like that's a heavy hitting question. Okay? So here's their feedback. You didn't do well in immigration. Okay, go do this, go do that. Review this topic. Now, what I want you to do with this question right here is I want you to go ahead, answer this question. Okay, show me that you understand this topic. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing, for each one of these. Okay, I'm just going to put once again the same question for time's sake, but obviously we want to have a different question. Okay, and you can put formulas in here or whatever. Now you also can do an extension question, so all students will get this one. Oops. All students will get this one, but I'm not going to do that this time. Okay, and so here we are. We're all set up. Okay, now the other thing that you can do is you can basically change the message that kids get. So if a kid gets all the questions right, you can say, you're excellent, or you need to review, or you're not secure. Go back and review. So you can change these adjectives, as they're called, and I'm just going to leave them the same. Now the other thing you want to do is, if you want, you can change what grade the kids will get. Okay, so these are not what we would consider grading for learning grades, So, maybe you want to do something like, make them advanced or proficient, just so kids have an idea of how they're doing. Okay, if you want to come up with different terms, that's fine too. Okay, almost done. Okay, so there you go. So there we have our auto feedbacks ready to rock and roll. And so here we see that we have our responses, and all we need are people to take our quiz. Okay, and once people take our quiz, the script will automatically go through and start giving kids feedback, pretty much in real time. Okay, so let's go ahead and wrap it up here. The last thing we want to do is we want to make sure that this thing is going to email, our kids when they take this. So we want to make sure we say create docs and emails. All right. And you have the option of including solutions or excluding solutions. So in other words, that means do you want the answer key to go back to the kids, or do you want them to work out the answers themselves? I'm going to click on include solutions, and here we go. We're just going to set up document creation. It says finished, and now we're done. So all that we need to do, and here you can see that it actually already did mine for me because I'm the answer key. So I have an email now in my email or my Google Drive or whatever that shows some information for me. So now as students start to take this test or this quiz, whatever you want to call it, the responses will go in here, and then SuperQuiz will automatically start generating these responses. Okay, so there you go. We did SuperQuiz. Hopefully you got something out of this. It's very, it's a little more difficult than some of the other things that we've done, but I think that we all can see the potential of this amazing script. So thank you very much. And please feel free to email me or tweet me any questions that you have. Thanks.